terms of existence with respect to time, Manu certainly preceded Kautalya. But why I'm picking Kautalya first because we are not going in some chronological order, right? The idea is to understand the political thinking of a particular philosopher or thinker. That is one. And second, this is something I thought that would be of more interest because the name would be familiar to you, and that is something to start with an interesting topic, right? And possibly you also may be knowing some of the ideas of Kautilya, which you might have referred to, in the books in political science, or which you might have come across in other literature that you may have read, right? So that's the reason, right? That's the reason that why I chose Kautilya to discuss first. But as I told you, please keep in mind that this is not any chronological order that we are trying to look at a specific a specific scholar or a specific thinker. Now there are a few things that we need to understand as far as Kautilya is concerned. As far as Kautilya as a person or Kautilya as a thinker, he is concerned. At first thing that there exists I would say popular perception that his name was Kautilya, Kautilya, and this is what you will find in most of the literature where his name is mentioned. And many people possibly get this perception that this Kautilya is has to do something with or has some relationship with the term kutil. Kutil in a sense that someone who is shrewd, someone who is cunning, someone who can maneuver the things to achieve success, right? So that is something which has to do with the popular perception that goes with the name of Kautilya. And as you must be knowing that Vishnugupta or Chanakya, these were other names by which we know Kautilya, and by which he has been referred to in literature, in political science or history, right? But the one fact that I you know, intend to tell you for your information that this name Kautalya has come from his clan's name, that is Kutal, right? He belonged to Kutal Gotra, Kutal. So that is why you will find that I prefer to write Kautalya, Kautalya, rather than Kautilya, right? So that's why Kautalya, number one. Number two, as far as his work, Arthashastra is concerned, his work Arthashastra is a kind of complete treatise which deals with state, the elements of sovereignty, how actually a state should conduct its policies, what should be the role and responsibilities of the king, what would be the relationship of the king with his subjects, how the king would conduct his policies, that the state exists in terms of its stature and power greater and superior to other states which may exist side by side, how one can understand the arrangements of the state around the king's own kingdom. So that is something we would refer to what we know as what we are familiar with as a mandala theory, right? And finally, what are those objectives for which the king or his estate would exist, right? So that is second thing we should know as far as Kautilya and his Arthashastra is concerned, right? The third thing we should keep in mind that as far as Kautalya is concerned, most of the times, and in my opinion, not correctly, you will find that, people try to compare him with, Machiavelli. Was Kautalya Machiavellian in his approach, which, in my understanding, is not correct, primarily because, in terms of time, in terms of importance, and in terms of the effectiveness of his work, in my opinion, Kautalya precedes Machiavelli. Machiavelli, he comes in 15th century, right? And the period of Kautilya is 4th century BCE. That's what you find 4th century, 5th century. That's the period of the modern empire, and wherein people have tried to understand that it is the same person who was the prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. Now, one thing you will find that there may not be unanimity or any kind of consensus as far as the personality of the thinker which we know as Kautilya is concerned, or the relationship of Arthashastra with Kautilya, especially among the Western philosophers. But among the Indian thinkers, among the Indian scholars and historians, this is fairly established that as far as the time period of Kautilya is concerned, he belonged to 4th century BCE. Number one. Number two, he is the same person who helped found Mauryan Empire. Number three, he is the same person who was the prime minister to Chandragupta Maurya, and the work Arthashastra belongs to Kautalya or Vishnugupta or Chanakya. So this is what is the final point, that Vishnugupta, Kautalya, and Chanakya, they were one and the same person. They were not different persons, right? So this is what we can keep in mind as a background when we are trying to understand Kautalya and his ideas and thoughts. Now, one thing I would make very clear, that as far as Kautilya is concerned, we would look at some specific books, what generally is known as Adhikaranas, right? Adhikaranas in Arthashastra, which primarily deal with state elements of sovereignty, the policies of the state, its foreign relations, meaning that primarily the issues which we focus in the discipline of political science. Because if you look at the whole work Arthashastra, right, then Arthashastra deals more significantly, in addition to the state and related elements, the matters pertaining to administration, the matters pertaining to taxation system, the matters pertaining to the the aspects of the relationship between morality and politics, right? And of course, the last point is something which we would refer to during our discussions, right? During our discussions. So that is what that is what I would give you as a background. To add to this, one should also know, as far as Kautilya and his work is concerned, that for a fairly long period of time, Kautilya and his work, it remained out of the academic circles, meaning that the academia, the researchers, they did not pay much attention to Kautilya's work Arthashastra for a fairly long period of time, and it was rather discovery of the work in early 20th century, so somewhere around 1909, by R. Sham Shastri, right? R. Sham Shastri. That his work was brought to the notice and attention of the academia and researchers and even policy planners and the government of the day, which happened to be the Britishers, at that point of time, 1909, right? So sorry, Sham Sastri did, he, collected the manuscripts and he translated the manuscripts and put them in some order, and that's what we are familiar with